Okay, great. I think we can start our session for today. Welcome everybody. Just want to do a quick sound check again. Freddie, you can hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you just fine.
Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session. I am Gabriel Malherbe, or Malherbe, as they say down here in Durban, one of the management executives of First Digital, a first technology company. We're very excited to host today's session, which is a joint event between ourselves and our valued partner, ClickDimensions, and specifically focusing today on the importance of creating alignment between IT and marketing in today's world. This session will have two parts today. Firstly, I'll attempt to demystify the challenge that we face in aligning IT and marketing and why it's so important in today's world. And then secondly, I'll hand over to our valued partner, ClickDimensions, which is going to showcase through a use case demonstration, their technology and their value proposition, focusing on marketing. But before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. Today's session will be recorded, and the recording will be made available to all of you on our Tech Summit website afterwards. We'll email those details to you. So feel free to refer a colleague to it, or anybody that could not attend today's session, one of your colleagues that you'd like to share the details with. That'll be emailed to you afterwards. Due to the size of the audience, everybody is by default placed on mute, and we ask that if you have any questions during the session to enter that into the chat window, which you'll find by clicking on the chat icon in your Teams client. Post your question on there. We've got a time allocated at the end of the session today to cover all of those sessions. Also, if you have any issues with regards to the webinar itself, Stephanie Brainard is running the webinar in the background. Please also reach out to her. You'll see she's one of the attendees on the meeting, or through the chat function on the Teams client. I'll do a bit more of a formal introduction, but representing ClickDimensions today is Freddie McDonald and Yancy Joyner. Freddie is the channel manager for ClickDimensions, and Yancy is a solutions consultant who will run the second part of this webinar today. Just very briefly about First Digital and our value proposition. We a services organization within the First Technology Group with a focus on custom software development, mobile and app development. Our work target on-premise infrastructure or cloud-first type deployments. We have got a dedicated automation and integration team where we represent some of our valued automation partners such as Nintex, K2, and more recently OutSystems. We've got a dedicated team focusing on Microsoft's Power Platform value proposition for low-code process automation, our digital workplace team, and we have a dedicated team that focus on data and analytics, mostly on the Microsoft stack, where they help our clients with data governance and data curation projects. And then also worth mentioning a sister organization of First Digital called First Impact, which is a dedicated digital marketing organization, which might appeal to some people on the audience today in case you need any assistance of that side of your business. Before we start today's session, I'd like to just break the ice by running a poll. And the question that you'll be presented with in your Teams client is just checking which department you represent in your organization. So you'll see that poll come up now in your Teams client. And if you can just make the selection there, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to do that. So you'll see the pop-up in your Teams client to ask you to view the poll. And from there, you can submit your result. And the question today is, which department do you represent in your company? Your options are marketing, IT, sales, or other. And I do know other can cover quite a large area. But obviously, we're quite interested to find out who is the marketeers or who is the individuals representing IT in today's call. Great. So we seem to have a fairly good spread between marketing and IT people on today's call. So why is this important? Why is it important that we align IT and marketing in today's world? Um, the way that our organizations, including ourselves and your organizations, take our product or our value proposition to market has become very dependent on technology. And the example that I'm going to use prior to handing over to ClickDimensions is, for instance, um, uh, e-commerce, an e-commerce channel or a business that wants to take the value proposition or their product online and sell that through some sort of digital channel, be that a dedicated e-commerce site or one of the e-commerce platforms that we have available through the likes of Facebook or marketplace settings such as Amazon or Takealot. Okay, and this very often requires an alignment between IT because it depends on systems and then the marketeers in your business who's the representatives of your brand. And um, just some interesting stats that I've brought up there onto the screen around, some of the misalignment that we find in organizations between IT and marketing and some of the challenges that create. Um, for instance, some research there by Oracle is that only 8% of marketeers feel that their marketing technology has been implemented well. So they come up with the vision, they come up with the dream, but there's a fraction of them that actually feels that the execution part of it, especially the bit that relies on information technology, gets well implemented. Okay, and the middle one there is especially interesting. Almost 80% of IT professionals think that they work collaboratively with marketing, but only 60% of marketing actually agree that that's the case. So clearly, there's also misalignment not only in reality and in practice, but also sometimes in perception. So let's take a typical e-commerce journey, and that's represented on the screen in front of you at the moment. So that's the typical life cycle of what you want to take an individual through in an e-commerce journey. The awareness part is really where the marketeers get involved, because this is getting the message out there, creating awareness of what your value proposition or what your product is that you're taking to market. So this is all about brand awareness, and this is really where the relationship between yourselves as an organization and your potential client starts. In a physical environment, such as a physical shop or physical representation of your business, that will be physical branding. In the digital world, that's obviously all around your digital marketing campaign and the advocation of your digital brand. You then get to the point where you've got a consumer that's considering looking at your product. So there, in an e-commerce example, that's typically where you've drawn that individual to your digital outlet. So the call to action through your digital marketing campaign has captured some attention through awareness, and there's now consideration. There's somebody that's actually considering purchasing a product or procuring a service from yourself through some sort of digital channel, and he's visiting that channel, he's interacting with it. Then the user typically goes through a process of making a commitment. That's your typical filling up of a shopping cart, and ultimately getting the commitment from the individual to finalize that purchase, part with payment details, committing to the actual purchase. Delivery, the delivery of the service or delivery of the product. And this is crucial in e-commerce because this is really where you build trust between yourself as an organization and the individual that's purchased either a product or service from you, because you're fulfilling the commitment that you've made during the purchase. And this is very often where, brands might have a brilliant marketing strategy. So the awareness is there. You get the individual to the point of actually making a purchase, and then fail in the delivery or the effective and timely delivery of that service or product. And that's a real pain point in e-commerce, or a crunch point in e-commerce where trust can be eroded or trust can be built. There's the actual product or service is then interacted with. I mean, there's no difference between that in the physical world or in the e-commerce digital world. Ultimately, if you are claiming to sell a quality product, you expect the end user purchase that product, and they then expect to receive a quality product or a quality service. And it's on that the marketeers then enter again in order to capitalize on that experience, that trust that's been built through the purchasing process, the delivery process, and crucially, by using your product or by consuming your service, and capitalizing on that loyalty and using that to then remarket or further market or upsell market to that audience that you've built trust with in order to repeat the whole cycle again from the start. So if we take that e-commerce journey and I just drop it down, we've talked about the two marketing endpoints on this experience. Let's look at where IT gets involved, and this can get quite complicated, and I do highlight some of them on my slide. For instance, in order to make a purchase, and if you want to take payment, immediately during making the purchase, you're going to need a payment gateway. So somehow you're going to need to be able to capture payment details, credit card details, for instance, and you're going to need to be able to secure those funds through something like a payment gateway, and that often requires technical integration. If, for instance, we're talking about an e-commerce store here, your potential clients visit your store, they will be browsing a catalog of product or services, and that catalog of product or services is typically sourced from some sort of internal database, like an ERP system or a product information management system, which will require integration and very often consultation with your IT department. And why this is also important, or why there's an alignment that needs to be formed between marketing and IT, is that companies that sell physical products in a store don't always sell all of those products or those specific versions of those products online. So sometimes, a one-to-one integration between your e-commerce store and your ERP, there's some work that needs to be done in that integration link to make sure that the marketeers have on the online store a subset of the catalog that exists in the ERP system, which can complicate that integration. And the same applies to any product attributes or product images, for instance. Images that you might use for a service or a product in store might be different. Your marketing team might want to use different imagery or different product descriptions for these products in a e-commerce store and some other digital channel. And very often, something like a product information management system might be introduced, which is a technical tool that might be introduced to assist with that. If an order is placed, that needs to be written back to the ERP system. If you are doing your own fulfillment, or if you're relying on a partner to deliver your service or your physical product, there's potentially some technical integration that needs to happen with a delivery partner. And then quite crucially, the marketeers can't work in isolation. They need data. They need data to create the awareness at the front of this funnel, and they need data to remarket in order to build that loyalty, which again is quite a reliance for them on data, which is typically controlled by IT people. So I'm hoping that this image makes clear why a simple example like an e-commerce store or online store, and why creating alignment between marketing and IT is absolutely critical for this to be a success. Some best practice recommendations that we can recommend to you guys to follow in order to build this alignment is for both IT and marketing to respect that they are different teams with different cultures, and ultimately they have different jobs to do. Their focuses will be different, and to respect those differences is a critical starting point to align the two teams. Conduct an audit as a recommendation before a new initiative is kicked off. Get people in a room, whiteboard the new initiative, and then ask critical questions like what technologies might be already available inside the organization that IT is aware of that marketing can rely on. where does those systems fall short? Identify those gaps between what systems might exist and what the need from the marketing team might be versus what's available from a IT perspective. Who owns those systems? Who owns the data inside those systems? And what is the detail of those data inside the systems? Does it meet the requirements of the initiative, of the marketing initiative that might be put on the table? Or is there a shortcoming or a gap that needs to be identified that would need to be covered through the project that will be the result of the initiative? And then use that audit and use that information that's gathered to create a shared vision, to create a shared objective between your marketing team and your IT team, to make sure that everybody is aligned in terms of what is the end goal of the initiative. And in order then to keep people accountable, agree roles and responsibilities to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, and that there's an alignment between who's looking after what in order to accomplish the shared vision. And then lastly, I guess this goes without saying, meet regularly in order to keep each other aligned and keep each other updated in terms of progress of the various aspects that might make up the joint marketing and IT initiative. Some of the benefits are that you are ultimately creating an improved customer service, because from a customer's point of view, they can't really be bothered or need to be bothered about the different internal silos that might exist in your business, especially the marketing silo versus the IT silo. And that then also shifts your own mindset from a singular to an integrated mindset. It also, in a way, forces us to look after our data and to scrutinize the data that we need to capture, and also the data that we have captured and how we use that to the benefit of either the IT or the marketing team, which could ultimately lead to a change in organizational culture in terms of cooperative working in order to achieve a common goal. And then lastly, during your audit that we've mentioned in our best practice recommendation, make sure that you select and implement the best technology that's available, either already in your organization, or if there's a gap identified, is to make sure that you go to market with a common vision in terms of what you expect of the technology to deliver on the initiative that you're undertaking. Great. So before I hand over to ClickDimensions to take us through their value proposition, just a second poll that will come up on your screen now. The question here we want to ask is, do you feel that there's a good working relationship between your IT and marketing team? And I do appreciate that some of you are not representing either of those two departments in your business, and it would still be interesting to get your perspective if you think that your IT and marketing team are working well together. So I'll give you another minute to complete that poll. Great. Does that come up for you guys? Freddie, sorry, I'm going to just use this as my signboard. Does that come up for you?
Yeah, it has done, yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
No, it's 67% that feel that their alignment could be better improved.
Okay, great. Okay, well, excellent. So that makes our session for today so much more topical. And great, Freddie, I think since you've prepared your mic there, I'm going to hand over to you and your colleague. Guys, just as an introduction again, Freddie McDonald, he's the Territory Channel Manager of ClickDimensions. He is based over in the UK. So please excuse his accent, although I pretty much enjoy it. And then Yancy kindly got up really early this morning. He's in America. I see the sun has slightly come up behind you there, Yancy. So yes. Good morning to you. And Freddie, over to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gabriel. And good afternoon to everybody on the session here. As you can tell, yes, I am based in the UK. I don't think my accent leaves too much of a margin for error there. Yancy's light behind it, or window, I should say, is in fact just a well-positioned white poster with a light behind it to make you feel better about waking up at such an hour. But there we go. We're on. We're here. We're live. Gabriel, you've done a really good job of introducing myself. Anyway, I don't think there's a great deal to add other than that I look after in the fortunate position of looking after the partnership with First Technology. ClickDimensions, I'll let Yanti run through a little bit about us, and then obviously get into part of the reason why we're all here today, which is of course to talk about ClickDimensions. Yanti, do you want to introduce yourself, and I'll hand over to you at this point.
Absolutely. My name is Yancey Joyner. I work with the solution consulting team here at ClickDimensions. So work with customers and partners to help them better understand our core functionality and where we can make that marketing automation experience more productive. So I can get us started and keep us moving through some of our content here. But ClickDimensions, as the reason that we exist, is very much around helping marketers creating the experiences that Gabriel outlined earlier in the session and driving growth and engagement. ClickDimensions has been around for 12 years. There are 3,700 customers worldwide, 100% channel driven. So we definitely engage and work very closely with our channel partners as they position and help us understand the needs and the requirements of customers. Definitely a global presence. You can kind of see that and feel that today. And last but not least, we are 100% native to Microsoft Dynamics. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through and what that means and why we feel like there is unique value in that statement. Now, when we typically encounter a customer, they fit this profile very often, and almost exclusively, they are using Dynamics from a sales CRM perspective. And so they're managing accounts, leads, contacts, the traditional CRM metrics that you would commonly expect. They are usually managing email marketing, social marketing, surveys, forms, landing pages, those types of marketing components outside of their Dynamics environment. So these are, before we encounter them, these are individual siloed applications that they're running. And we seek to take all of this functionality and have it embedded as one solution file within their Dynamics CRM environment. So we're going to take what they're already doing, and we're going to put it in an environment where it's going to add the greatest amount of value going forward. Now, what does native fully mean? You've heard me mention that, and I do want to just bring up the product just for a moment. So this is a live Dynamics 365 sales environment. And I just selected the little apps section for this particular environment. And you can see that ClickDimensions exists as a solution file within this Dynamics environment. Now, what that's going to mean to the end user is that there's going to be a complete seamless experience related to the value proposition that ClickDimensions brings to that D365 sales environment. So just to give you one quick example, I opened up a campaign that a customer might be managing in CRM. And because ClickDimensions, that solution file is enabled within that D365 sales environment, this ClickDimensions tab is one of many different views where you can see where we add value to the accounts, the leads, or the contacts that you might be managing in D365 for sales. So you're going to have one spot to see all of your sent emails, so all of your email marketing activities, all of your posted subscriptions around what types of emails your contacts or leads would like to receive, all of your website visits, all of your web page views, forms that have been submitted, surveys. If you have contacts or leads that are attending events, either on-site events or online events that you're hosting, you're going to be able to see that, as well as text messages and social clicks. Now, I brought this up just to drive home that 100% native comment, because you're going to see this ClickDimensions tab at the contact level, the lead level, the account level, all of your email marketing, all of your forms, your landing pages, your automation, so your drip journeys around marketing. We add all of that capability to your D365 CRM environment from a marketing perspective. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through, but I wanted to give you a visual for what being native fully means as well. Now, that fosters a multi-channel marketing automation experience, and we are the #1 marketing application for Microsoft Dynamics. And I touched on a couple of these pillars as I was doing my intro into how ClickDimensions fits from a solution file standpoint into your D365 sales environment. So our core competencies are going to be represented by the pillars that you see here. So we definitely provide capabilities around inbound marketing. So every contact or lead that interacts with a landing page or an event, or if they submit a form, or even if they just visit your website or a particular web page, we're going to tie that back to the individual contact or lead that managed. From a lead management perspective, we're going to allow you to engage in lead nurturing and tracking activities. You're going to be able to facilitate lead scoring and qualification. So if you're thinking about how do we determine which leads we may pass over to sales, this lead scoring and qualification is going to be definitely a great help there. We're also going to talk a little bit more about how we can use multi-channel lead management. So not only having email or inbound, but also using social as a way to cultivate and score and qualify leads as we go through as well. Now, this multi-channel orchestration, it can be email, it can be events, it can be mobile, it can be social, it can be web, it can be surveys. All of these are supported from a core competency standpoint within ClickDimensions, as well as allowing the marketer to aggregate all of this data from a campaign perspective. And that's what we pulled up earlier when we were looking within D365. We had one marketing campaign that we had defined in CRM, and then ClickDimensions is driving all of the multi-channel marketing orchestration within that campaign. So we're going to allow you and to facilitate better campaign tracking, better campaign automation, working from a common marketing calendar, and also providing a consistent reporting environment as well. Now, on that multi-channel marketing orchestration theme, I do want to point out that we have deep capability around social marketing as well. And I'm going to lay out the 5 pillars of our social marketing strategy. That first pillar is definitely going to be around the way you create posts and how you publish those posts. So across multiple social networks, using multiple profiles, you're going to be able to efficiently schedule and work from a common calendar to facilitate all of your social publishing. This is going to lead to demand generation, and I'm going to show you in a moment how I can take that interaction with those social posts and create nurturing campaign automations so I can take those leads and lead them through a nurturing experience based on the fact that they interacted with content from a social perspective. We also can engage in social listening. So allowing you to listen into the way your brands or your profiles or keywords or hashtags associated with your brands are being reacted to in real time. So I can see how many likes, how many retweets, how many comments based on the parameters that I've set up where I want to monitor and engage in those conversations. We also support the concept of social advocacy. And social advocacy is important because that will allow all of your colleagues, teammates, to take content that your marketing team has built or developed, and then they can share that with the followers that they have on their own social network. So, for example, we use this here at ClickDimensions, and I take marketing content from ClickDimensions, I see that on my social advocacy board, and I share that with followers on LinkedIn and also Twitter. So it's a great way to extend your social outreach by using the followers of your teammates and colleagues. And then finally, social customer care. The more you interact and publish social posts, the more you will have your target audiences reaching back to you. And maybe sometimes it's to provide excellent feedback, sometimes maybe it's to provide not so great feedback, but having one centralized spot where you can see all of that interaction across all networks and all profiles, make sure that you don't miss any communication that's coming back to you from your target audiences. Now, the way this comes to life, and I wanted just to give you an example from ClickDimensions to show how we can take a social post and I can drive, in this example, a webinar attendance. So think about this for a moment. If someone interacted with a post where I was advertising or communicating around an upcoming webinar that I had, I can take that post and I can do something very basic like creating 2 different marketing lists, one for a West region, one for an East region. And then I can assign an owner or a team member to follow up. And a part of that follow up might be a registration email to alert those people that interacted with my post based on the region in which they reside, an invitation to our webinar. Now, once that email has been sent, I can look at that email and determine if they clicked the link for registration, then I can route them down a positive path. If they did not click that link for registration, I could initiate a timer that would wait 1 week. I could repitch the email, monitor that email again. And if they did indeed click the link the second time around, I could route them back up so that my regional sales team can send over user login and credentials. Now, this is just an example, but it's an example that I see deployed many times. And this is using a couple of key concepts of our marketing automation platform. Number one, the fact that we allow you to outreach to your target audiences with social and take those interactions from social and begin to build basic nurturing campaigns. In this example, inviting those target audience members to an upcoming webinar that we have. Now I'm going to flip it over to Freddie for a moment to take us through some of our USPs, but happy to answer any questions on the back end around what I covered in my piece there. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Yancey. Thank you very much. So listen, Yancey's of course spoken at fairly great length about the fully native piece within Dynamics. Of course, obviously shown you where we sit within it, sort of that single user phase. Now, to really highlight a couple of sort of core points to that and sort of real world sort of outcomes off the back of it, if you will. The first thing to consider is that there isn't any syncing. So there isn't the necessity for you to manually export email lists, for instance, out of an Excel sheet or out of a different sort of collection point, putting it into your marketing automation mass email spectrum, if you will. Vice versa, of course, if someone is, of course, wanting to come to you and saying, right, under Popea registrations, I want to unsubscribe at this point, I'm not interested in hearing your communications, you don't have the necessity to go back in, manually go into your email marketing platform that you might be using at the moment, pull them out of it, address their preferences if they've simply come back to you and said, I don't want to receive this. It is all under one user phase. It affects all of it. Mass outreach, I suppose, but without the headache of having to manage those types of aspects, and sort of those day-to-day activities are drastically reduced. There is also the value proposition of the data being kept in one place. So again, you're not looking at different data silo sets, having to obviously navigate across them, end up with an end customer experience which is less than desirable because you haven't addressed every single aspect or requirement that end customer has asked of you. Moving on from that, obviously, Yancey showed you through the 5 different core pillars of the marketing, social marketing capability we have. Now, I drum on this probably more than most of my partners and customers care to. Simple reason being that at the moment, social marketing from a global perspective has blown up. It isn't blowing up. It has blown up. Right at this moment of time, thanks to COVID, thanks to people working from home, the reality is that we've moved away from being singularly focused towards email marketing to be much more orientated towards sort of that cross marketing capability, and social has been leading the way with that. Yes, obviously email marketing then becomes sort of that regular communication piece, but let's face it, people are now reaching individuals through LinkedIn, through posting on Facebook, through posting on Twitter, and suddenly because of social marketing, negative communication, sort of negative experience, I should say, has been heightened from a visibility perspective. You can see all of those horror stories of individuals that had their data shared, for instance, and they're spouting off about it on Facebook, for instance. Yeah, for you as a brand, for an organization, being able to get on top of that, being able to see if anyone is saying something negative about you on Twitter, being able to then message them directly, or even on the public domain, so that you can be seen to be addressing their challenges, becomes even more paramount. And you have the ability to do this within the one platform piece. Fundamentally, sort of a unique selling point for ClickDimensions is that we were built by marketers for marketers, right? John Gravely, the original founder of ClickDimensions, was a marketing individual with a technology background. As such, the UI, the UX, everything about ClickDimensions makes sense. You don't have to go down separate paths that wouldn't make sense to you as a marketer, because it is all built for a marketing individual. So to put that into practice, you have the ability to market to a lead as opposed to the necessity to having to go and create a contact out of that lead, then send appropriate communications from that. It makes sense. We are, I would say, from a unique selling point perspective, we are truly SME orientated, and by that, what I mean is that sort of everything is orientated towards the success and the support of you should you come on and use a platform like ours. What I mean by that, our pricing infrastructure, for instance, we don't limit on the amount of users that you want to have in the platform. We don't limit on the number of contacts you do. We make it fairly straightforward. Our pricing model is based on the amount of emails that you send. So all that social marketing technology, all of the lead scoring, all of that functionality that Yancey showed you, including parts of the social, I will caveat that by saying that there are obviously the full fat social add-on which has costing associated, but otherwise it's all bundled in. You're not looking at, okay, well, pricing up a project structure because you want to move across and having to factor in and get your calculator out and add it to a spreadsheet, and then of course a dark art, if you will, to projecting what your costs are going to be from an annual perspective. Moving away from that to sort of more of the support side of things, this is all that we do at ClickDimensions. We are a marketing automation platform. As such, we can walk the walk. We have a dedicated customer success team orientated for every customer that comes on to us, whose single point of view, their focus, I should say, is to add value to you. So it's to pick up the phone and say, hey, Gabriel, you're not using 5 of the 7 key aspects of Dimensions, how can we help you with this? Or actually your campaign automation usage has dropped, for instance. And it is all there orientated to help you. So if it's a case of saying, well, how do I do this? Or what is best practice here? We have that option available to you. We even go so far as to actually having optional marketing services to go off the back of that. So we have customers, for instance, that will be brave enough to migrate to a new marketing platform just before Christmas or before a big product go live. And so they do not have the bandwidth to get all the templates built. And they really just need to ensure that there is no dip in day-to-day usage of their marketing automation platform. And so they will come and work with us. They'll work with our services team to get, should we say, get the lights turned on in their new office, if you will. We'll build their templates for them. We'll build their campaign automation for them. As Yancey showed you before, sort of it's a fairly, it can be as complex as you want to make it. And there is the flexibility, the scalability, if you will. And we have even seen businesses that have outsourced their marketing to an extent with us. Off the back of that. The only other piece I would mention is that we have a dedicated support team that you get for coming with ClickDimensions. There isn't necessity to work with an entity or have to wait for someone on the other side of the globe to come online, and then you're looking at a 2-week engagement for someone to come through to you with support tickets. Yes, obviously there is of course always technical issues that can lead to protracted support engagements, but fundamentally speaking, this is our platform. Therefore, all of our support team have knowledge about what we do. You're not having to rely on a very small team that are based only in one particular country. We are a global company. We operate on a global level. Yazzie, do you want to switch over for me, if possible, to the next slide? Mm-hmm. Just to talk a little bit about sort of actual use cases here to give you some working examples, if you will, because we have obviously avoided it, not on purpose. We have done it on purpose, but not show you the platform because we want to actually give you some wild examples and show you sort of our value proposition, if you will. So using the North Coast Medical Center or NCMC as an example here. Now, here's an example of an organization that has used most, if not all, of the functionality of ClickDimensions. So for instance, for those individuals, they're using campaign automation. They're using it as a way of creating an automated patient engagement campaign aimed at finding expectant mothers who've already pre-registered with the hospital, making sure that it's easy for them to create marketing lists off the back of that, segment those lists as they need to, personalize that list as much as possible to ensure that people are getting the right communications at what stage they are within their pregnancy, for instance. They've used the drag and drop editor to do that personalization piece. They've used the landing page and the forms to ensure that the right communication is getting through to people at the right time. Again, from a social media perspective, to go from the marketing side of things to capture that attention. And then actually to ensure that they are getting people's accurate feedback off the back of their engagement, they're using our surveys. So they're being sent surveys saying, what was your experience like of working with us at this particular moment in time? How would you rate us? What did you think of this? And then all of this has been done through ClickDimensions. The outcome of that is that you can see it for yourself. They've got 51% of the patients reported that they're feeling more valued as a patient when they are receiving the right digital communications. They saw an improved click-through rate of 14% and conversion rates of that by 10%. And 74% of the event attendees, and that's obviously individuals that have either had physical engagement with them going to the hospital itself or to the center itself, I should say, or it has been people that have gone to webinars from a knowledge and education perspective. 74% of them said they had a positive opinion of them, and the service that was being presented off the back of that. Fairly outstanding sort of outcome off the back of implementing a digital platform like that. And interestingly, they've actually gone subsequently using ClickDimensions to market a postnatal educational side of things as well, a webinar piece, which again, sort of that aftermarket. I hate to use that expression when we're talking about, of course, pregnancy here, but that aftermarket product piece, that aftermarket engagement side of things. Going across to that, Jans, if you want to go onto the next slide for me, please. Again, different sector here, talking about the manufacturing side of things. We had a business, Prairie Land, who were leveraging ClickDimensions for them. They build golf course machinery, for instance. And you can see here another fantastic case of where campaign automation being that holistic glue that holds the different functionality together. They haven't given us their outcome off the back of that. It's actually not that rare. Being a technology provider, some end customers get worried if they tell you how good they are or how good you are and how much they enjoy their platform. They're worried that you'll turn around and their prices up. Not an actual risk for ClickDimensions. We don't do that, but it's there all the same. But again, sort of, you see the commonality there. You've got the campaign automation holding everything together. You have the drag and drop email editor being used to ensure that everything is as succinct as possible as it can be, with low code to no code, subject to how technical you want to go, within the platform to ensure that sort of quick email communication is being sent out regularly. Again, they then use surveys. Their surveys are a little bit different because they use surveys to capture feedback and then actually generate awareness for additional services. So, for instance, booking their machines in to get serviced on an annual basis. And again, it's that aftermarket engagement and automating it as much as they possibly can do, which then frees up time. Yeah, so George, go to the last slide for me, please. Just to recap on a couple of the benefits here, I mentioned it before, time saving. Time saving it's like bronze seal. It does what it says in the tin. It is marketing automation is what ClickDimensions does here. By automating, you're saving time. By saving time, you're saving money. It's all fairly straightforward in that side of things. The beauty of it is that we make it as straightforward as possible to do the likes of reporting, so that you can quickly identify and attribute the return of investment and then reinvest that money appropriately into campaigns that we're converting for you, as opposed to having to, I suppose the big question mark going to a marketer is, right, where are all of these leads coming from? What's the benefit here? Which campaigns are yielding well for us? And then we can invest that money appropriately. It's all done there for you, easily accessible, easy to report on. The scalability side of things is huge. As I mentioned, obviously, with the services team, if you do hit a busy point, or if unfortunately you lose a staff member, there is the ability to lean on us as an organization to help even train up new hires to replace headcounts, if you will. And as I said before, fully supported with that services piece. So those are sort of the core benefits that we offer from a marketing automation perspective. From a next step side of things, biggest suggestion would be have a conversation with your First Technology account manager. We work hand in glove with First Technology. They'll be very happy to arrange a demo with us. What we would ask is that if you do choose to go down this route, is please do come to us, make us aware of sort of what platform that you're using at the moment, what campaigns are you running. That's marketing campaigns, that is, what is working, what could perform a little bit better for you, and what you'd really like to see from a marketing automation perspective. And at least what we can then do is make sure that our demo is as relevant to you as possible, and we're not boring you with functionality which isn't going to light your fire, should we say. And that's me. Gabriel, back over to you for questions. You're on mute at the moment, sir.
Great, thank you, Freddie. Yancy, thank you so much. Let me just share my screen here again. Excellent, thank you, Freddie. Yancy, especially for just positioning ClickDimension and its relationship with Microsoft Dynamics, and how it is ultimately perceived as a IT tool, or a tool supported by IT, but used by the marketing guys. And Freddie, thank you so much for taking us through some of those use cases of some of the successful deployments that you guys have done. Let's move over to questions. We've got about 10 minutes left on the webinar. Somebody sent me a direct one here. This is an interesting one. Freddie, you or Yancy can take that one. Obviously, with the advent of personal protection laws all over the world, GDPR over in Europe and more specifically in the South African context, the papaya legislation. Yep. People are becoming, or individuals are becoming, aware of their rights in terms of, can I be marketed to? Can I be unsolicited marketed to? And that might come through multiple channels, not just email. If you expect to opt out or expect an organization to protect your personal information and how they use it for marketing campaigns versus SMS campaigns. Tell us a little bit about, ClickDimensions' answer to those challenges in order to stay compliant.
It's a great question. So I suppose also the beauty from a South African perspective is that we had GDPR a few years back roll out, so we had a head start. And fortunately, there is not too many differences. There's a couple of differences, a couple of nuances, but fairly similar between GDPR and papaya in terms of sort of how they work. We have a couple of different things. So the biggest one for us is subscription preferences. So rather than having what people have done in the past, which is simply say unsubscribe, and there is an unsubscribe button, and it actually just accesses them from all aspects of their marketing automation, the email marketing perspective. The beauty of having something like a subscription preferences is that you can actually say to an individual, okay, you have the control to dictate what you get from us, what communications about what subject, and how frequently you get it. So you're putting that to the end customer to control. So it isn't a blanket piece. Again, going back to sort of the fully native within Dynamics side of things, there is no risk, or certainly drastically reduced risk of an individual unsubscribing from your email communications, but still sitting in your CRM, and suddenly someone could go in and market to them from a social perspective, for instance, or anything like that. You can actually see that someone has opted out. So it may be a case that they want to opt out of all email communications, but they still want to be part of it. They may want to receive that email catalog from you on an annual basis, for instance. And again, you can record that natively in the same place, all there under one house. They can control that themselves through the subscription preferences side of things. So there isn't that risk. You're not going to be suddenly getting a bullshit email from some individual saying, hey, I opted out under my rights, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to try and take you to the cleaners, right? That is all, all addressed, all accounted for.
Okay, great. Okay, excellent. Thanks for clearing that up, Freddie. And then I've got another one here that was also sent directly to me. It's around social listening. I think this is a topic that sometimes is not very clear. I think as businesses, we're not always 100% sure what it is and what to do with it. I think the question here is the understanding that if somebody mentions your brand, for instance, somewhere in a social channel, or that you are made aware of it. Just talk us a little bit through about how this works practically, and how ClickDimensions answers that challenge.
Great question.
Jens,
do you want to take that piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most common use cases that you see around social listening, and it's just one use case, but it is a very common one, and that is around a product launch. And it's very common for organizations to go in and maybe they are using a keyword or a hashtag associated with a product launch, or maybe they're just using a brand name associated with a product launch. The listening capabilities are going to allow you to go in and create a channel on any or all of those variables. So whether it's brand name, it's keyword, it's even a profile name. And when I set up that channel from a listening standpoint, I am going to be able to see every interaction with that variable that I've defined for that listening channel. So if it's a product launch, every time that that keyword is as used as a part of a comment, a DM, I'm going to be able to listen in and see what that comment is. So it gives me a great early indicator of what my target audiences think about the relevant products or services that I might be bringing to market.
Okay. And I guess then, from a marketing perspective, this is important in order to be, quite reactive to comments that might be made about your business or about your product, for instance.
I gave you a real-world example here, actually, where this was came fully into effect. So an end customer that is using ClickDimensions at the moment, or subsequently bought ClickDimensions, they were looking at the time. They were a training organization. They did academy-based training, and they had a situation. They'd been looking at ClickDimensions for a variety of different reasons. They came to us one day and said, "We want to buy ClickDimensions. Don't care." Of course, they cared how much it cost, but they said at the time, "Give us a quote. We'll sign it today. We want this right now." And said, "Okay, well, not to look a gift horse in the mouth here, but what is your interest? Sort of what was the burning desire?" I've been talking for a couple of months, and they turned around. And they said that they had missed one of their prospects that they'd been talking to, a individual within a prospect that they had been talking to, going onto LinkedIn, posting saying, "Can anybody recommend some relevant academy training platforms for me?" And they didn't see it. Had they, of course, had their social listening tool in play, had they obviously listed that end customer as an organization they wanted to be on the lookout for, or anybody who was mentioning academy training and the relevant sectors to it, that would have obviously been flagged for them. The relevant account manager for our end customer could then have reached out to them and said, "Hey, listen, I see that you've posted this on LinkedIn. Love to have a conversation with you about what your requirements were," and re-engage them in that way. So sort of an active real-world example of where
Okay.
social listening would have really helped.
Okay, great. I think that's a brilliant example. I hope that answers the question. Okay, I see we're about out of time. So just then finally, if there's no other questions that anybody wants to post to the chat, this is the reminder that the session has been recorded, and as soon as that's available, Stephanie will let you guys know where to download this from, which will be from our Tech Summit website. I've just brought up that URL. Anyway, in the meantime, there's some of our previous webinars is all hosted on there. And then I guess just before I finally sign off, if anybody is interested in an absolutely no string attached, no cost hands-on demo or consulting session, either with First Digital or with ClickDimensions, please reach out to your First Technology account manager. If you don't know who that is, please make contact with ourselves directly through info@firsttech.digital, and we'll direct your request and get you helped. Other than that, I want to thank Freddie and Yancy. Thank you so much for supporting us today on this webinar. And finally, for everybody that attended, thank you so much. Thanks for showing an interest. And if any of you want to find out any more, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Gabriel. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.
Cheers.
Cheers.